Right then, good morning. There's been some breaking news from The Athletic, as it generally is at the moment. It is, I believe, it's the best sporting outlet that's out there for, certainly for Manchester United, but probably for greater football, actually. And the news is breaking that Dan Ashworth is leaving Manchester United. Trying to read the article and work out, has he been sacked? It sort of says mutual, but it reads like he's been sacked. I'm going to be honest with you. So, what's happened? He was only appointed on the 1st of July after a very high-profile move from Newcastle, where United paid somewhere in the region of 2 to 3 million in terms of compensation for him. He was probably on gardening leave longer than he's been at the club, and then left. Obviously, he's had stints with Brighton, with the FA, with Newcastle. He's credited with a lot of England's youth success from 2017. He had a big role in the summer in the acquisition of Lenioro, Ugarte, De Ligt, Mazraoui, Xerxes. And that 200 million that was spent, supposedly had a big voice in getting rid of Ten Hag and hiring Ruben Amorim. So what has happened? And is this problematic? And I think it is, to be honest. I'm not sure this is a good thing. Obviously, there's a lot of speculation for the reasons on his exit. Jim Ratcliffe, Sir Dave Brailsford are continually restructuring the club post Ineos, but Dan Ashworth felt like a massive part of that. And obviously he's had a big hand in both the transfers and the managerial changes that have happened at the club already. Is it down to a possible clash of philosophies with Ratcliffe, with Barada, with Wilcox, with the new manager, with the old manager? You know, there are reports of a mutual agreement to part ways, but I think there's obviously some deeper behind-the-scenes issues going on here. There's obviously pressure and challenges when it comes to implementing the change. Certainly at a club as big and as fragmented at United, and I'm sure you're not going to get every single decision correct at all times. But this feels 5 months is a ridiculousness. And obviously, it leaves a significant void in the sporting operations of Manchester United at a time when we should be, like, I feel like Amorim's giving minutes to players right now with a little bit of an eye on, does he fit in my plans and can I move him on? Like almost evaluating them, like almost coming to a decision on whether or not this person can be part of my Manchester United from Amorim's point of view. So when you're doing that in December, ahead of what is a massive January window for both the club and the manager, losing your sporting director in December, unless we're about to announce the new one tomorrow, and it was the plan that he was going and was bringing somebody in, then I really think this is a problematic time for the club. There's going to be disruption to both long-term recruitment and performance strategies. It highlights the instability at the club despite the recent investments, despite the structural changes. This is one we haven't got right for whatever reason. And I'm sure, off record, some people will give more detail to what they've been able to publish. But I'm sure it's obviously one that we've got wrong because he's had to go. Whether we had to sack him or whether he wanted to go, it was obviously the wrong decision to appoint him. Obviously the wrong decision. So mistakes have been made. And mistakes will continually get made because, people are fallible. Then you have to go, right, okay, quite clearly we want a sporting director. It's a massively important role at the club. Who are we going to turn to? Paul Mitchell's name keeps coming up. Now, the irony of the Paul Mitchell one is there was a lot of talk locally that Paul Mitchell was going to be going to Manchester United. I mean, a lot of talk. It obviously didn't materialise. United appointed Ashworth, and he actually taken Ashworth's vacated role at Newcastle in July. So, Paul Mitchell, I believe there's been friction there at Newcastle, and people aren't happy, and there's some talk that even he might not be happy, but I would be absolutely flabbergasted if we went back to Newcastle and took their sporting director for the second time in 6 months. That feels a bit far-fetched. Is there a possibility of Edwin van der Sar? There was some talk about Michael Edwards. Jason Wilcox, currently at the club. Could he be promoted for continuity? And then there's the name that we have been linked with before in the past in Luis Campos. So, and by the way, it could also, and it probably very likely is going to be someone that isn't on that list. Someone that we haven't heard of, someone that we haven't thought of, someone who wasn't on our radar, but might be on people at the club's radar. And I hope that's the case, to be honest. I would hope that's the case. We shouldn't be able to identify who United are going for in this, and the club should have deeper tentacles and a better sort of recruitment and evaluation system than the club's YouTube fan channels, shouldn't it? I'd be absolutely wounded if we was be able to correctly identify who we were going to go for. But what does it mean for Ruben Amorim? Well, supposedly Ashworth was a big voice in Ten Hag's dismissal and Ruben Amorim's appointment. What does it mean for Ruben Amorim? I mean, the fact that he's gone after the game yesterday feels... I don't know. Could his exit change the dynamics in the managerial, in the hierarchical support for Ruben Amorim and his future at the club? It raises the questions about who's going to oversee the integration of the new signings and the continued squad building. There's so many questions. Why do I think he's gone? I don't know. I don't have any information in terms of why he's left after a short time. It could be personal. It could be health. It could be performance. It could be philosophical disagreements. It could be a number of things. It could be any number of things. And like I just said, on who I think should replace him, someone I don't know. It should be someone with a good track record. I mean, obviously, I always have liked the idea of Paul Mitchell. I just don't think that's feasible with him recently taking up position at Newcastle. But I don't like it. Just when it felt like United were getting things right behind the scenes, you're losing your sporting director, which is such a key figure 6 months into this project. It's not good. It is not good. It certainly isn't a positive, I don't think. Unless United have identified someone who is better at the job than him. And I would be surprised if United have got that person waiting in the wings and have just realised Ashworth wasn't the man and have moved that fast. This feels like a reaction to something. And I'm sure it'll come out in the wash. But it feels like a bit of a quick trigger pull, in my opinion. I mean, you guys let me know in the comments what is going on here. Is this good or bad for the club? And aside from that, what I have done is just turn back on YouTube memberships because I got asked last night. I spoke about what the plans are with Patreon going forward. And there was a few different questions with that, and there was a little bit of back and forward on that. And then someone asked about YouTube memberships, and I'll be honest with you, I totally forgot about YouTube memberships. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have quite a lot of parallel content. It will be different, but by and large, you might not really notice the difference. If you wanted to become a YouTube member, they are now active and on. Or if you would prefer Patreon, both of those are now turned on and active. And if you want to support the channel, you're going to get exclusive weekly vlogs. They don't go out on YouTube. They only go in there. They'll be on YouTube memberships, obviously. We're going to start doing some iconic match breakdowns. And I'll do the first one this week if we hit a bit of a threshold in terms of members. So if you fancy that, iconic match breakdowns, like I said, I've already got a handful that I am going to do. But I am interested in hearing which ones you want to do. I'll bring back the Q&As. I'll start with one next week. There's behind-the-scenes content from what we're doing, early access to stuff, and I am just waiting on the campsite to give us the confirmation for that IRL fest that we've talked about. It will only go to people on Patreon. So if you are interested in supporting the channel and getting involved with some of the other stuff that we do that kind of ties in the football team, the IRL, and the behind-the-scenes of this channel, as well as some what I'm thinking, these iconic match breakdowns, especially with a legend. And I actually spoke to a couple of legends last night and said, would you be up for this? And they all replied yes. If you'd be interested in checking those out, there might be like a 30-second teaser goes out publicly, but the entire video will only live on here. So if you want to help us create bigger, better content, be part of the journey, become a YouTube member, which I think is just down below the video, but down there, or click the link in the description and be a Patreon, whichever platform you prefer. They'll be largely the same. But come and get involved and help grow the channel and all that stuff, and I will see you lot in the next one. Laters.